The sterile smell of court paperwork and a heavy mixture of apprehension permeated the air in the courtroom. I sat, a monument of enforced silence where I hold the scuffed leather of my briefcase across from me. My knuckles are white. Amelia, my wife of 12 years, sat with a nearly serene expression. Perhaps I thought, with a knot in my stomach, that she had lied under oath, portraying me as a domineering, unstable husband who had driven her to find solace elsewhere, namely in the arms of a narcissistic, attractive boy named Chad, who looked more like he belonged in a cologne commercial than in a real relationship. The divorce proceedings had been a masterclass in deceit and manipulation. Amelia, who had always been an expert at crafting well-crafted facades, had outdone herself by misinterpreting my behavior, twisting my words, and even presenting fake text messages that portrayed me as the antagonist in a marital dispute. I, on the other hand, had been quiet, almost passive, letting them build their case confident in the knowledge that I held the ace. My retaliation would not be screamed or shouted but delivered with cold calculated precision. Her lawyer, a shark with an oily smile and a designer suit, nodded in agreement with every calculated lie she spun. Mr. Henderson, the judge, was going to play my ace today. A woman with sharp eyes and a direct manner interrupted the nervous muttering in the room with her voice, asking if there were any more witnesses to call. I stood there looking at Eliz for a moment, and I noticed a glimmer of something in her eyes, not fear yet, but maybe a tiny pause in the painstakingly put-together facade. "Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to call Emma." Sarah Jensen took the stage. The crowd was filled with bewildered whispers. As the door at the back of the courtroom opened, I saw a grim satisfaction rising inside of me. Sarah entered with her head held high and her dark eyes blazing with a mixture of determination and barely contained fury. She was my sister, a fierce woman who had always been more loyal to me than to almost anyone else, Amelia. When she saw Sarah do something I hadn't expected, she gasped a sharp audible intake of air that reverberated in the silent courtroom. Her thoughtfully constructed a glimpse of complete nudity and a break in tranquility. A question rimmed Chad's beautiful features as he turned to face her as panic swept over her face. Sarah stood on the witness stand, her gaze never leaving Amelia. The lawyer began to protest, but the judge interrupted him with a wave of her hand, his oily smile wavering for the first time. "Jensen, M. I started off by being calm but firm. You were aware of the circumstances surrounding my divorce from Amelia Henderson, correct?" "I'm Sarah." Her eyes narrowed as she looked at my wife, making the silent accusation clear. "You were also aware of another party involved, Mr. Chad Miller." A small smirk touched her lips, and I even have a beautiful picture of the two of them checking in. She produced a picture from a small envelope and gave it to the judge. A murmur went around the room. The picture was taken from the lobby camera of the nearby hotel that Amelia frequently stayed at. Sarah calmly broke down Amelia's made-up story, testifying to the numerous hours of phone conversations, the private texts, and the meticulously recorded meetings she had seen between Amelia and Chad. She even provided dates, times, and specifics of the conversations she had overheard. She also mentioned the hotel key cards she had discovered in Amelia's purse, the receipts for the dinners Chad had paid for, and the second cell phone Amelia had used to conduct her affair. Sarah's evidence was a masterclass in dispelling lies. It was detailed, accurate, and completely damning. As each revelation came to light, the tension in the courtroom increased. I saw Amelia's carefully crafted facade come crashing down, revealing a mask of dread and shame. The lawyer appeared to be chewing on lemons while Chad shifted uneasily, his face losing color. As Sarah finished, his face twisted in distaste as our eyes met and a wordless acknowledgement passed between us. The judge gazed at Amelia, who sat motionless like a statue, and asked, "Do you want to cross-examine? My brother was never abusive, she used and played him, and to be honest, she should be ashamed of herself for all the falsehoods she has told." "Jensen, M." The judge glanced at me as Amelia's voice, hardly more than a whisper, shook her head. The fight had left her. "Mr. Henderson." As I left the courtroom, I felt a rush of something that wasn't quite triumph but something close. I knew that it was about the truth finally being recognized. The rest of the day was a blur. During lunch, I found myself unable to eat, the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. After the court reconvened, the judge announced her verdict with an almost palpable air of disappointment. "It appears that your sister's testimony has provided new evidence of considerable importance. We will need time to review it. In the meantime, we will recess before further deliberations will begin." I left the courtroom feeling lighter than I had in months, but the day wasn't over yet. I knew where Chad would be at the hip, upscale restaurant he frequented to get his fair share of attention, so I made my way there and found him sitting alone at the bar nursing a drink. In addition to the divorce being granted, she also awarded me primary custody of our children, citing Amelia's dishonesty under oath and unstable behavior as a danger to their well-being. The shiny floor made my footsteps heavy as I walked up. There was a flash of recognition and a look of fear in Chad's eyes when I spoke in a low, menacing voice. Henderson tried to sound casual when he said, "Effin' fancy meeting you here, I was hoping to meet you." I narrowed my eyes and said, I didn't waste time with words, grabbing him by the collar and dragging him from the B door. He struggled to free himself, but I was so angry and betrayed that I slammed him against the wall, making the sound reverberate throughout the suddenly quiet restaurant. His face twisted in agony and terror. "You slept with my wife," I said in a low growl. "You ruined my marriage and you participated in her lies. You believe that your body and foolish face are all that matter." Chad attempted to apologize, but I interrupted him by punching him in the jaw. He staggered, and blood began to trickle from his lip as I rained punches on him with precise, intentional force rather than carelessly. I knew that people were observing and whispering, but I didn't care since I had suppressed this anger for so long and it had finally come out. It wasn't a pleasant battle, but it was what he deserved. I eventually let him fall to the ground, gasping for air, and he lay there with a shattered caricature of himself, his designer clothes smeared with blood and grime, his face bruised and swollen. I stood over him, my chest heaving, my eyes in disgust, telling him to stay away from me and my family because you are nothing more than a pitiful, dishonest opportunist who you will never forget. I left him lying there when I left the restaurant today, a shell of the haughty, self-assured guy he believed he was. It felt so beautiful and wonderful to watch his social media accounts explode with people mocking him and his shallow, manufactured life. I saw his life fall apart as everyone realized that he was a social leech who listened to others. In the days and weeks that followed, I did it not for my own satisfaction but to ensure that he would never hurt anyone again. I concentrated on rebuilding my life, being a good father to my kids, and healing the deep wounds that Amelia had caused. I found comfort in the love of my family and friends, in their unwavering support, and I even found a deep sense of peace. Amelia, on the other hand, had to live with the consequences of her actions. She lost her children, her reputation, and the label that everyone would now know she was a liar. My revenge wasn't just about winning the battle or beating Chad to death, it was about exposing the truth and allowing the consequences to be a natural reaction from everyone. It was about taking back my life and finding a way to move forward with my own dignity, and it was, in a way, a very satisfying end to a very dark chapter.